Hello again, everybody. This is our fourth installment in the If on a Winter's Night a Traveler series. And I have a few things kind of weighing on my mind after finishing what I feel like is a pretty good section. We're now, I don't know, 2/3 of the way done, or I mean a third of the way done. Got 2/3 left. And I was kind of thinking about what I wrote a little bit just as I hit the record button. The idea where I stated you can only think about something, but the more of anything basically will always lead to something becoming real. And it's like almost thought. It's like I'm catching up with thought. There's something strange about my reading this author's books. It's almost like he has such free thinking in the way that thought itself can come to conclusions. It's like thought actually does have the real answer. Thought gives us an advantage, if not anything else, in being able to think how to change the world, how to change ourselves. And I feel like this author really sort of hits that nail on the head, whether or not he even knows that's what he's hitting. And it just sort of happens that as you're reading this book, the story kind of appears, because it's as if that thought has sort of just allowed itself to become so expressive in its attempt to make thought matter, and again by its ability to draw conclusions from thinking about things. And that's why I said it has that racy sort of aspect to it, right? It's like you're coming to a conclusion all the time almost. You know, just like if I could read you a section here. It's just like there's so much thought, and right here. "It's a fake," Professor Uzi Tuzi cries. "It's a well-known case of forgery. The material is apocryphal, disseminated by the Cimbrian nationalists during the anti-Cimmerian propaganda campaign at the end of the First World War." It's just like such a almost eclectic way of reaching for things that have that sort of nature as to giving things this idea of there being something there. You know, it's just like, you know, another thing that I said the other day, it's just like, is it a spell, or is it actually true? And I think I said that while I was reading one of those Wilder poetry books. And there's another part where he talks about this civilization right here. Wait until you hear this part. "Don't ask where the rest of this book is a shrill cry that comes from an undefined spot among the shelves. all books continue in the beyond. The professor's voice goes up and down. Where has he got to? Perhaps he is rolling around beneath the desk. Perhaps he is hanging himself from the lamp in the ceiling. Continue where, you ask? Perched on the edge of the precipice? Beyond what? Books are the steps of the threshold. All Sumerian authors have passed it. Then the wordless language of the dead begins, which says the things that only the language of the dead can say. Sumerian is the last language of the living, the language of the threshold. You come here to try to listen there. Beyond, listen. But you are no longer listening to anything, the two of you. You have also disappeared, flattened in a corner, one clinging to the other. Is this your answer? Do you want to demonstrate that the living also have a wordless language with which books cannot be written, but which can only be lived second by second, which cannot be recorded or remembered? First comes this wordless language of living bodies. Is this the premise you wish Uzi-Tuzi would take into account? Then the words books are written with, and attempts to translate that first language are vain. Then Sumerian books are all unfinished. Uzi-Tuzi sighs, because they continue beyond in the other language, in the silent language to which all the words we believe we read refer. And then she says, believe, why believe? I like to read, really to read. It's just so full of this vibrosity of thought. And you'll see why I'm saying that there's like some story that's coming out of all of this. And like I said, it's just like the more of anything almost is what makes, you know, actually it's specific amounts of things make things matter, but you know, certain things have different amounts and other things have more amounts of certain things before they actually mean something. And maybe these sort of racing thoughts and things like that, it takes quite a bit of them before you actually just allow your mind to race. And once it does, it's almost like you're picking up, you know, where you left off, kind of, is what it feels like when you actually catch the moment where I'll get to here in a second, where we're at now. But I mean, that's kind of what it's been like up to this point. He says, like, the professor snaps the book shut. Then nothing, leaning from the steep slope, breaks off here. Having written these first pages of his novel, Ukko Ahti sank into a deep depression, which, in the space of a few years, led him to 3 unsuccessful suicide attempts, and one that succeeded. Though incomplete, or perhaps for this very reason, Leaning from the Steep Slope is the most representative work of Sumerian prose, for what it reveals, and even more for what it hides, for its reticence, withdrawal, its disappearing. The professor's voice seems about to die away. But it's just so fascinating. And then all of a sudden we get to this part right here, where it's like you immediately then we find ourselves with the guy who's been reading all these stories, for which they go to the author to clarify this other story, and then they have somebody come in and tell them that this story is actually is finished, but it's like from a civilization that went through like some political upheavals. So the author changed his name and it's finished in this other language. And then we end up with this lady who's been trying to read the same book as this other guy in this place, and then they're under a new professor, and now he's reading the new book, and then they say, you immediately realize that you're listening to something that has no possible connection with leaning from the steep slope, or with outside the town of Malbork, or even with If on a Winter Night a Traveler. So then he mentions his own book here or whatever. It's like almost like some kind of like game of hopscotch, or like braiding kind of thing. It's like focus on this over here, and then while you're doing that, this kind of comes around behind, and but you got to be able to like keep up with it and catch it when it does, to be able to make the braid kind of perfect. But I mean, this is just branching out like a chasm into all these different facets. And the funny thing is it really sort of makes it feel like you've caught on to something when it actually sort of does catch, I think it's a very interesting way of sort of covering all your bases kind of thing. It's like I've said this about this author before and some other authors. It's like the better he does this, the more that you almost just would think that anything that you catch is his intention. And I almost imagine this guy as like, as close as he is to people, it almost seems like he's just as distant, It's like no matter how much you get to know about him, it's just like he is something that is continually changing too. So it's like as soon as you're to where he is or whatever with him, then it's like you realize that there's more to it now, because he's already going somewhere else, kind of thing. And I feel like that's probably maybe a more true way to sort of live this life, but I think it can be a very difficult kind of thing as well. It's like, you know what I mean? Me finding myself here in nature. The funny thing is like, that's why I said the other day, I was like, I'm just going deeper into the woods, and it's just like, I just am what I appear to be, because it's almost like if I'm just here reading, it's like, what is anybody going to assume of me other than I'm a reader? And it's like that already with itself is sort of projecting a positive light. But at the same point in time, it's like where there is truth, it almost seems like it is instantaneous. Like where the most truth is, it really is like the truth does cover every base. And it's like wherever you catch hold, it's like that is actually the truth and your strength. If I sort of had to apply that, just this reckoning of things. Better to be a poor man in nature than be a poor man, you know what I mean, like in the city. The city is like a linear kind of experience, almost. But as soon as you're in a place like this, it's whatever you appear to be, kind of thing. And I guess to an extent, you know what I mean? If you consciously made that effort, you could appear the same in a populated place as well, but it just seems like there's more time. Time is much more of a matter there, and so it's easier to tell if something has nowhere to go or somewhere to be. But if I was to apply what I'm saying here, in that maybe that is like the truth, and like one of these shrapnel anchors that this guy is trying to get after he's recording all this stuff from an instrument. And you guys are going to listen to me trying to explain this, but it's just like, that's what the way the book is. But, it just catches. And so who's to say that time doesn't matter here, you know? And it's like I was just saying, like, this is covering all bases, and I think that what is here should be elsewhere as well. And I think that maybe we can sort of learn something from this. Maybe we can sort of feel as though we have history in the place where we actually look like we're the most bright. And it looks like where maybe how we feel actually matters. I think it's probably just like anything else. It's just a matter of making that a part of your life, and then probably, you know, through a certain amount of it, more in general, you know, it's going to be something that is defended, you know, by you probably in some way or another. So interesting. I'm glad I picked it up. But yeah, fourth insertion of our book, If on a Winter's Night a Traveler. I had this other thought as well. This idea that I had one time about these foreign places, like other languages, being enamored sort of by the idea that things could be in a perpetual mourning, like your first time seeing something. And it was almost like translation itself sort of ruined it, as if it wasn't necessarily something to get. Like, that's the idea of actually knowing. But if we know something, then we know there's something to get. And so as soon as it's translated into our understanding, or any form of understanding, it's all of a sudden susceptible to all the things that we have to feel responsible for and don't want to do, like having some dream where we had riches. And so it's sort of like knowing something and knowing something. To know and to know. There's knowing something and there's knowing something. And it's like if we know something, like really know something, then there's genuinely, I feel like, nothing to know. But it's in knowing that we know that there's always something to know.